Hey, good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session and welcome to the Code Without Barriers virtual meetup. So, I hope you guys are having a splendid Thursday, and it's even better that you have joined us. It's going to be a splendid session where we discuss a really important topic, which is job hunting. And we have Sugasini who is going to talk about it. Before we get into the session, I just wanted to share that the session is recorded. You do not need to record at your end, and there is certificate of participation at the end of it. So make sure you stay till the end and fill out the form that will be shared. And before we get into the core of the session, which is job hunting and how do you acquire it, those strategies that you need to be, know to be getting your dream job. We will get into it. Before that, we have Nuria Puri, who is a program manager for the CWB in the Asia Pacific, and she's gonna let us know about what Code Without Barriers is doing in Asia Pacific and what the key role they are playing in the women developers in Asia. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Surak, and let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, it's
Yes,
visible.
okay, perfect, perfect. Great. So, good afternoon and good afternoon and good evening. Sorry for everyone for joining in on this call. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules on a Thursday for this special session. This is a very special Code Without Barriers virtual meetup session that we're co-hosting with Stiva as well as with Hidden Gems Talent. We did get a lot of interest from our community members on wanting to do a session which is specific on career development. So we hope you do enjoy this session. Before we get started with the main topic, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nuria Puri, and I'm the program manager for the Code Without Barriers program across Asia Pacific. I've been a part of this program now for about 6 months, but I feel every single day I learn something new about the different ways that this program is actually changing and impacting the lives of women developers around us. So I hope you would have a similar story as well from your side. So I'd like to first start off with our mission statement, which is essentially threefold: focusing on innovation, closing the gender gap, and building a platform for inclusive economic growth. The main word that I'd like to emphasize here is on inclusivity. We notice that people who develop today's new age technologies sometimes don't look at all the facets, such as gender or even race, leading to negative consequences and alienating certain groups when building technology around us. Therefore, by building in diversity in the developer, data, and AI teams, we hope to find tech solutions that are inclusive for society and can also help bridge the gender gap. As we can see in the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Report of 2024, only 28.2% of the entire STEM population is that of women developers. We also notice that the number of women in tech leadership roles is still quite low and requires the support of developers and business thinkers alike to help reduce this gap. Findings have shown that women tend to feel less confident about their abilities and whether they will succeed in these senior leadership roles, especially if they don't feel like they have been skilled enough in the industry domain. Which is why in 2021, we created the Code Without Barriers program. The program, which was first launched in ASEAN, has now spread to other areas in Asia as well, such as Australia, New Zealand, India, Japan, GCR, as well as the Korea markets. Through this program, we hope to reduce the gender gap by providing female developers the chance to upskill themselves in data and AI and be a part of our mentorship program. And finally, put their theoretical upskilling knowledge into real life scenarios through our annual hackathon event. On the screen, you can see some of our impact numbers that we have generated just last year alone. We had over 38,000 women developers who were skilled in AI as well as in Copilot. We had over 53 partners who had signed MOU documents with us, and they had offered over 144 jobs as well as 200 internship opportunities. We've had 120 mentors and 1,000 plus mentees who have been a part of our program, and these numbers only keep increasing. We've had about 82 community partners and 23 events just last year alone. This year, we've already crossed that number. Our annual hackathon, which takes place starting March till the end of June, we've had over 4,000 participants in last year's event. And in this year, we're looking to further increase not just the scale of the hackathon, but also the prizes that will be available for our community members. The individual journey of the female developer can essentially be seen in the diagram that I'm showing. We use our existing Microsoft customer and partner ecosystem and our open source communities to provide opportunities for female developers. Women are upskilled and certified on Microsoft technologies. They're matched with an industry expert through the mentorship program, and they're provided opportunities to network through our community meetups, such as this one, to further expand their horizon in the tech sector. Through our customers and partners, we provide women with unique internship as well as full-time role opportunities that are exclusive to our Code Without Barriers community. Here are some of our partnerships from last year, such as Petronas, HCL Tech, Accenture, Prudential, GitHub, and many, many more that are being signed as we speak as well for this year's impact. Last year, we had many in-person community meetups with our local community partners. And this year, we're looking to expand even further by hosting virtual community meetups such as this, which makes it accessible to all, regardless of which region you are a part of. We've had many success stories throughout Code Without Barriers, but the one that really stands out for me is the one of Sankari. Sankari took a career break of almost 20 years for personal reasons and decided to come back, join the Code Without Barriers program, upskilled herself on Microsoft AI, and through our customer and partner ecosystem, landed a job as a data analyst. Sankari is one of the many impact stories that we've been able to generate throughout our Code Without Barriers program since the inception. Sankari now works actively to give back to the Code Without Barriers community, and we're very excited to see what all of our women developers are up to. We've had many such success stories, and people are constantly posting on LinkedIn, and we recommend and encourage you to also do the same so that we can help grow and expand our network and increase the number of female developers who can be impacted in the same way. With that in mind, here are the 2 QR codes for you to be a part of this wonderful program if you're not registered already. The top QR code will redirect you to our Code Without Barriers website, and the bottom QR code will redirect you to our Code Without Barriers LinkedIn group. I know Surag will also post this in the chat as well, but please do sign up so that you can stay up to date of all of our offerings, whether they're the upcoming community meetups, mentoring circles, updates, or even skilling initiatives that we're doing throughout the year. It's a great way for you to stay informed and know what's next in the program. With that, I'd like to bring this part of the session to a close. Thank you for joining today and being a part of our Code Without Barriers community. We look forward to seeing you at more such events like this. I'd now like to hand it over back to Surag to take you through the main session.
Thank you, Nuria, for that wonderful introduction about Code Without Barriers. And now we understand what you guys been doing and why it is important to jump into Code Without Barriers and the opportunity that you guys are offering. So I have dropped the link as Nuria mentioned, and you guys can join through that link as well. So now it's the core part of the session, which you guys all been waiting for. So we have Sugasini Kandia, who's joining us, and she's a founder of Hidden Gem Talent, and she is going to be the main one who is going to share us about the session. And with her, we have Sindhu Chengad, who is engagement officer for the a client and their partner in Microsoft Office Asia Pacific. So she's gonna be with her and also share her knowledge and her experience in the job hunting region. So without any delay, we can get into the session. So I'm just gonna share the presentation.
Thanks, Surag. And hi, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I am super excited, Sukasni, to welcome you today to this session. This is a topic that is deeply personal to me and something that I can say been there, done that. I'm currently the customer partner engagement lead and I work as part of the Office of the President for ASEAN. I've been in Microsoft for the last 10 years. So it feels like, I mean, a decade actually feels like a century. It feels that long. But it's been a super exciting journey. But like I said, I've been through at least four career breaks in my life. And each of those were in a different country. So every time I moved countries, the US, UK, Singapore, Korea, I've had that opportunity to go and look out for a job. So I know how tough it is and how challenging it can be, which is why this topic is super exciting. And Sukasni, I'm so excited to welcome you once again, for you to be sharing more tips with our participants today, for them to be hearing more and see how they can apply some of these tips and tricks you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sindhu. Surag, you'll be putting up the slides. Perfect.
Okay, there they come. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for that introduction, Sindhu. Folks, thank you so much for being here and for spending your Thursday evening with us. A little bit about myself. I'm the founder of Hidden Gems Talent. We are a recruitment agency that basically connects Singaporean and Australian companies with top remote talent from around Southeast Asia, actually. So think roles like software engineers, digital marketers, creators, creative creative professionals. We place those people in roles with Singaporean and Australian companies. I am not a career recruiter. This was, in fact, a space that I stumbled into several years ago and I thought had a lot of commercial potential. What I've learned is that talent is universal, but opportunities are not. And one of my missions in starting this business was to democratize access to opportunities and being able to give young folks access to jobs that they may not have in their home countries. Because I do think where you work can really make a difference to your entire life trajectory. Next slide, Sarak. So a little bit about my story. So as I said, I was not a career recruiter, but I was a very timid and meek job hunter. I was that person who took the first offer that they got. I never ever negotiated my salaries because I always thought, oh gosh, what happens if I negotiate too hard and they pull the job away from me. Um, I also was always afraid to approach my network for jobs because I thought, oh my gosh, what if they think, oh, why is she looking for a job? What's wrong with her? Ultimately, there was a massive fear of failure on my part. And I think this is something that, I remember quite strongly and that drives me in what I do today. Um, Next, Swaraj. But now that I've become a recruiter, I've been able to see things. Sorry, just one step back, Sora. Back. So now that I'm a recruiter, I've been able to see things from the employer's standpoint, right? And I think there were two myths that I held, which to me were really busted, especially in building this business. And one is that the job goes to the most qualified candidate. We often think when we don't get a job, oh, that's because we weren't the most qualified candidate. But the truth is, honestly, it goes to the person that is really either the most likable candidate, the candidate that just left an impression. Um, and to be honest, when you look at a job description, I was one of those people who looked at the job description and saw the points that I didn't fulfill. And the truth is, stepping to the other side of recruitment from the employer side, if you actually fulfill almost every criteria in the role, you're probably a little bit overqualified. The second myth I also saw was that salary budgets are set in stone. Almost every client that I've recruited for, they will give me a budget, but what they will say to me is, Suga, this is a budget for you, but if you find someone really good, I'm prepared to go above my budget. I hear this almost every single time. So, um, so that's just some food for thought for you guys. Next slide, Raj. Just one more click as well. So, when I think about a good job hunter or a good job seeker, honestly, a lot of it is about mindset. Just having the right mindset. And when I think about, the best job seekers that I've met while building this business, honestly, they are just salespeople. When I think about how they operate throughout the job seeking process, they're really great salespeople. So, having learned from them, here's kind of the framework that I have for us today, which is how do you become a salesperson, essentially the salesperson of yourself? Next slide. Sorry. So selling yourself can be really cringy. I get that. One more click, Sarag. Selling yourself can be really cringy. And I know a lot of people really don't like to do it. There's this mentality, right? If I'm good enough, people will come to me. The job offer should come to me. I really shouldn't have to sell myself. The other part of selling yourself is, if you sell yourself, you might get rejected, and that makes a lot of people feel very uncomfortable. But the number one quality of a great salesperson is that they're able to endure rejection. And more than that, they can figure out how to turn rejection um, into opportunity, right? I don't know whether you've ever been to a store and you see a salesperson coming up to you and you think, oh God, I'm definitely not going to buy. So I'm definitely not going to buy from this person. But then that salesperson starts talking to you and they start learning more about your needs. Then you find, oh, you know what this person's actually selling is something I could use. That is a really good salesperson because you don't even realize you're being sold to. So,
So, I have a question
yeah,
here, and this is super true for most of us, right? We find it hard to sell ourselves. We find that it's so awkward if we have to talk about ourselves. So, what is your tip to even become a good salesperson? Where does somebody start?
yeah, that's a great question, Sindhu. I guess you have to really believe that you can add value. So the best salespeople, the lens that they use is I genuinely believe that what I'm selling is going to help you and it's going to make your life better. And if you start from that perspective, that what you're doing, that if you work for a specific company, that you can add value to that company, then you're not just like selling, you're not just trying to take away something from that company, you're actually trying to give something to that company. And that's kind of really the best cap to wear when you're trying to sell yourself and when you're
Right.
job seeking, right? Always think about how could I really add value to this company?
Right. So, confidence in yourself, and then figuring out how you can add value.
Yeah, just really
Right.
thinking about here's my customer. I want to add value to them so much. I'm going to find an opportunity to figure out how to add value to them, right? Next slide, Sarak. So, I had to kind of put this line in the presentation because I know a lot of people, for them the job hunting process is very much tied to their sense of self-worth. I see this over and over again with my candidates. At the beginning, I can spot a good candidate easily because I've seen like hundreds, if not thousands of them, right? The best candidate, they'll start off the job process, very high on energy, really excited, ready to go. And then as they get one rejection after another rejection, you start seeing them put less and less effort into the process. When the truth is, maybe it's that sixth or seventh opportunity that's really a great fit for them, but because they don't show up as their best self, the self that I saw in that first job opportunity, they end up not getting the job, which is really, really sad because I saw them in the first time I put them saw forward, I saw that best self. But then in the seventh job opportunity, they're so tired, they're, really feeling down and they don't give their best effort anymore. And then they get a rejection. So then it leads to a virtuous cycle. So always kind of keeping, always trying to show up as your best self, that kind of consistency really takes you a long way. So, and the way to do this is really to say, hey, this job hunting process is a challenge. It's a game, and I want to like win this game, right? It's not a measure of my self-worth. This is very, very important psychologically for you to have in mind. Next slide, Tarak.
I was just saying it's so true. And one thing that helps me is to tell myself it's not me, and this job wasn't the right fit for me if I didn't get it. So for me to look at this as, okay, this wasn't the end of the world if I didn't get it because it wasn't the right thing for me, and then to move on.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen so many instances where the job didn't go to the best candidate. It went to, someone who the hiring manager got along with because, they shared similar interests. Or, the best candidate just didn't have that one small thing. Say the hiring manager was looking for someone with like, expertise in I don't know, radioactive technology, a digital marketer with expertise in radioactive technology, then you can be the best digital marketer from a skills perspective. But for them, having that industry knowledge was what determined the best candidate. So skills wise, you had actually everything, but you just didn't have that one small thing, right? And the job went to someone who was maybe like, you know, very, very mediocre as a digital marketer, but had that radioactive industry expertise, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So no fault of yours, but this is just part of the game. All right, so part two, now diving into just job hunting strategy, right? And this is where we get into like the tactical components of job hunting. Sarah, can you click one more time? So when you think about job hunting strategy, going back to what I said about becoming a salesperson, the product here is you. Think of yourself as what you're selling, right? And so next slide, Surag. So now we'll dive into, all right, okay, what does it mean to be a product? The best salespeople know their product and believe in their product. And I think this goes back, Cindy, to what you were saying, right? How do you kind of get into selling yourself? I think it's when you really believe you can add value and you really know who you are. You will walk into any interview and you will almost have this feeling that, hey, if you don't hire me, it's going to be your loss. Okay, I'm going to give this my best shot, but if you don't hire me, it's your loss. Next click, Sarah. So what defines you as a product? Okay, and this is where I think, the best job seekers, they really spend time thinking about it. The first is, of course, your story. There's nothing that will capture someone more than your story. When you walk out of an interview, they should be able to say, oh, I remember that girl's story. I remember that girl because I remember her story. Stories stick far more than facts and data. Story will stick. So you got to be able to tell a good story. And the story should be what motivates you, right? Why are you here today? What motivates you? So have a great story. And then, of course, there are technical skills. I mean, being very clear on what your technical skills are, and being able to rate, hey, I am a 10 out of 10 in React. I'm a 7 out of 10 in TypeScript. Your soft skills, this is a little bit harder to say, but I think this just comes across in communication. Your industry expertise, always kind of have that very clear. I've got B2B expertise, I've got B2C expertise, I've got expertise in the healthcare. Sit down and kind of really take some time to codify your industry expertise. And then just your general background, right? What countries have you lived in? What languages do you know? All of these little things really go a long way in helping you nail a job. Next slide, Surak. So, big part of how you present yourself is going to be your resume. But I want to tell you this, your resume is really your brochure. If you're a salesperson, your resume is your brochure. Recruiters, hiring managers, honestly, they spend less than 5 to 8 seconds looking at your resume. But if they do like what they see in the first 5 to 8 seconds, then they're going to move on. They're going to start digging deeper, right? So my advice to you, I mean, there's lots and lots of great resume advice out there, but here's my 2 bits of advice to you that I think are the most important. Always use the format, did X to achieve Y results. Quantify your results. I mean, some people say, look, but it's so hard to quantify what I do. Maybe as a marketer, it's easy to say, oh, I brought in like X number of customers. But think about it this way, every job has targets, or every business has targets, right? Try to think about how what you did led to the business achieving their targets. So, even someone like a doctor would be able to quantify their results. He can say, I met this many patients that led to 80% or 90% satisfaction score. The results can be quantified in terms of conversions, users. It can be quantified in terms of revenue, so money, profit. It can be cost savings. So think through, if you had to quantify the impact, that is so important. This is, I would say, of all the CVs that come across, maybe only 5% of people do this, but to me, they immediately set themselves apart and they immediately put themselves in the top 5%. The second thing you got to do is zero grammatical errors. I cannot emphasize this enough. I don't know why, but as a recruiter, as someone who views CVs every day, I am able to almost immediately spot a grammatical error, a punctuation error. I mean, I can't even do this for myself. Like, when I'm writing a document, I wouldn't be able to spot this myself, but I can easily spot this in a resume. So what you should do is you might find it difficult to spot your own grammatical errors, but what I would do if I were you is send your CV to like 5 or 10 people and then just ask them to give you feedback. They may give you good or bad feedback from a content perspective, but they'll definitely be able to give you feedback on the grammatical errors. So this is just a hack for you.
And Sikha, there's one thing also that when I look at resumes, or when people send them to me, I look at the length sometimes. Do you want to maybe share a little more about the length to our?
Yeah, for sure, Sindhu. The general rule of thumb when you're writing your resume is 1 page for every 10 years. So if you've got less than 10 years of experience, you need to fit everything you want to say in that 1 page. And this is a really good exercise, right? Because then you kind of figure out like, what's the most important thing that I need to communicate? And then it goes back also to that format, which is what are the results? All right. Reviewing documents, organizing, attended meetings. No, this doesn't go inside your resume, right? Everything you do should be quantified. And I think, if you stick with that format, you should be able to keep your resume within 1 page if you've less than 10 years, or 2 pages if you've got more.
And what advice do you have to our, let's say, technical uh, uh, participants on call, maybe like, people who've done projects, etc. And so they say, hey, you know what, I can't seem to fit all that in 1 page or 2 pages. So what do you suggest for somebody who's trying to put together a technical one?
Yeah, so with technical stuff, what I would do is with software engineers, what I would do is first of all have a summary saying, hey, I'm a software engineer. These are the tech stacks that I'm really good at. And here's a brief overview of some of the projects I've worked on, and then check out my GitHub link, right? Or put together a portfolio and say, click on this link to see more about my portfolio.
I love that idea. I think especially if that person is a software engineer or developer, etc., no better way to showcase their own work by showing it online, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's a great idea.
I would almost say if you're a software engineer, you need to have a GitHub link.
Yeah.
Um, because I think almost all software engineers have it. And if you don't, then I'm a recruiter, I'll be like, oh, I wonder why. You
Yeah.
almost kind of go to the bottom of the list quite quickly. So
Yeah.
build your GitHub portfolio and showcase it, right?
Yeah. So you heard Sugasini. So please do keep it to 2 pages or under, even if you are technical. Great, thank you. So
All
we'll
right.
get going.
Next slide, Surag. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide in the entire presentation, finding your target customer. Now, the best way for me to explain this is through an example, right? Okay, say your product is an inhaler. So who needs an inhaler? An inhaler is only used by people who have breathing difficulties, people with asthma, right? If I try and sell an inhaler to someone who has no breathing difficulties, they're going to be like, what do I use this for? I mean, why are you even selling this to me? So think about this example. And when you're trying to find your target customer, right? Who would love to use your service? Okay. So, firstly, I would say companies you love because employers are going to love people, are going to love to hire people who already love them, right? If you're already sold by the mission of them, of the company, the culture, the product of the company, that puts you ahead of the other applicants, right? Because as an employer, I don't need to now convince you to buy into my company. You're already convinced. So those are the first people you should go to. The second is competitors of your past employers. If you've worked for a digital marketing agency that specializes in B2B sales, or say you're a software engineer who's worked on a job application platform, then going to your competitors will give you a big leg up because you know the industry, you know the space, you'll know what the competitors want, you'll know what the competitors are even lacking. So you give them a lot of intel about the industry, and that also gives you a big advantage. And then, of course, there's just companies that are generally looking for your skill set, right? And this one, requires a bit of research. Um, and then we'll go into how to do the research as in the next phase. But really figuring out, in sales we have this term called ICP, which stands for Ideal Customer Persona. So think about who your ICP is. Okay. And then the second thing you should do, as you're thinking about your ideal customers, is building your own CRM system. And CRM here stands for customer relationship management. Um, I would implore you to start doing this from the beginning of your career. And it can just be a simple spreadsheet where you keep track of all the contacts, all the interactions that you've made, keep track of the applications that you've done, the interviews. And then what you're going to use the CRM system for is to essentially follow up. So imagine like you're starting your career and you reached out to someone who, you admire, and you keep that in your CRM. And then you use this to follow up with people. And if you followed up with this person for 5 years, trust me, this person is going to recommend you for a job just given that you followed up with them and you stayed in touch with them, right? That's how relationships are built. And if you have a system that can assist you with that, this will go a long way. Now, also caveat that probably only 1% of people do this. But this is a presentation on job hunting like a pro. And if you want to be a pro, have a CRM system. So I think we have a question there. Didn't see it.
Okay, let me read it out.
Okay.
So Isha says, I have project experience before my career break. So to convey what I did, I need to write achievements and job scope in my resume. Also, I worked in education system due to family time constraints. So I need to add achievements and skills for this job in my resume. So my resume goes 3 pages, including upskilling certification in addition to the above job information. So I think this is
Yeah.
one on the length, right? So what do you suggest on that?
Yeah, so you need to really figure out, if you've worked for less than 10 years, then you really need to figure out what goes in that one page. Because I guarantee you, I'll tell you this, the moment I see a 3-page resume, I'm already thinking this person is not qualified because they didn't even know how to summarize their own skills.
Mhm.
So you may think, look, I just really need to convey all this information. But what's going on in my head as a hiring manager is you don't know how to summarize. And summarizing is a really important skill, right? Figuring out what's important, how to prioritize, how to summarize. If you don't know how to do that, then you've got a long way to go before I can consider you for the job. So this is the other drawback, right, of sending in long resumes. Not just that people don't read it, but it actually sets a negative impression.
Right. So I guess in a nutshell, to answer Isha's question would be that it's to figure out what you want to call out or highlight in your resume and see how you can make it more concise, because there will be some creative way to make that concise, and that's what will catch the attention of
Yeah,
the hiring manager.
yeah. And it's okay to say, look, as part of, and it's okay to mention at the top, look, I took a career break, but these are, some of my notable achievements from my past jobs and from school as well.
Great. All right. Thank you. And Isha, I hope that answers the question.
All
And
right, next slide.
oh, so but there's one more comment I think that
Sure.
she's making, which is, and I think this is actually relevant to a lot of our technical folks here. So while she says she has her recent projects at GitHub, but then she says recent certifications. I've seen a lot of people talk about all the certifications, all the languages they know, or the technologies that they're aware. So she says, can I put that in the beginning, followed by the GitHub link, and then a brief job summary?
So we typically put a summary in the beginning, and then I want to see, and then okay, if your most recent is certifications because you had a job maybe like 10 years back, then yes, I would start off with the certifications, right? And really show, hey, I got the certification, but guess what? I was the top 1% of my cohort, or I got the score in the process of getting the certification, right? You want to be able to emphasize to them what this certification really means. So then you can have a write-up about the process of getting the certification, what the certification means, and then you go back into your job summary. And then I see there's another question on, is there an age limit to start a career? Um, yes. So I would say, there is a lot of ageism in the workplace. Absolutely. But I think as Nuria mentioned in the beginning, if you have the determination and the persistence, um, I think you can craft out opportunities for yourself. And I believe Sindhu can also speak to this,
Yeah.
actually.
I definitely agree. I don't think age should be a limit. And if somebody is a hiring manager thinks that age is a limit, then that's not the right fit for you. But there are a lot of people these days who hire for skills and competencies and not based on age. So honestly, that should be the last thing that they should even be considering. Most often, they're not even supposed to ask age. So they're not supposed to ask age, they're not supposed to ask gender. So some of these barriers that are kind of sometimes that you come across, let's just say ignore that and then try to just go ahead. If that's a dream job, then yes, don't let that hinder you.
All right, next slide, Surag. Okay, so this is probably the second most important slide. Reaching the decision makers, right? In sales, we have a saying, people buy from people. And in recruitment, people hire people, right? People don't hire resumes, they don't hire certifications and skills, they hire people. The best way to actually get hired is through referrals. Okay. This is why the recruitment industry is a $1 trillion industry, because just the fact that a recruiter introduces you to a company gives you a big leg up versus if you just sent in an application on a website. Okay. 80% of jobs actually aren't posted. And I know this is true myself because what happens is when I meet a really, really good candidate, I'll just go to my clients and say, hey, this person is amazing. They're very well skilled. Do you think you would be able to have some opportunity create some opportunity for her? And oftentimes clients will do it, employers will do it because good people are very difficult to find. So, what are the strategies here? Use your network, friends, family, former colleagues. Use your network heavily. Tell them I'm looking for a job. I want to get hired. If you know somebody, please, I'm just happy to have coffee chats. Tell people that know you and believe in you. First step, use your network. Second, LinkedIn. Leverage LinkedIn. LinkedIn is such a powerful platform, but most people use it the wrong way. Most people will write to somebody and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. And I saw that there was this job opening. Can you please um, recommend me, or can you please tell me more about this job? Like, me, I want a job, right? The better way to do it and the right way to do it is actually show interest in the person, right? Say, I'm interested in the industry. I saw that you've grown your career in this company. I would love to learn about how you built your career. I'd love to learn about how you um, did what you did, would love to get your advice, right? Make it about the other person because you'll find you'll get a higher response rate that way. People will say, yeah, I'm happy to have a 30-minute chat with you and tell you more about this role, tell you more about how to build your career as a software engineer, tell you more about startup life, tell you more about Microsoft, whatever it is, right? And then you kind of use that as like your leg in, right? Because, as you talk to them and you hear more, and then if you feel like, hey, this is actually really a fit for what I want, then you can kind of say, if I wanted to apply to this company, what would be your advice? And guess what? If they really like you, most big companies actually have great referral programs. If they really like you after that 30-minute chat or 1 hour coffee catch up, they'll say, oh, yeah, we have a referral program. I'm very happy to kind of say, if you send me your CV, I'll just, send it to our HR and send it to our referral program. Because what you don't know is, people, referral programs actually put you on the fast track with most companies. So if you've met somebody, they like you, they send your CV through a referral program, the next time that company has a job that suits your skill set, or if they actually have a current opening, you'll be fast tracked. So this is the way to leverage LinkedIn. Thirdly, build a personal brand. This is a very long-term game, but this will set you apart. But what does building a personal brand mean? It means, trying to write your views online, publishing your code. This is going back to GitHub. Why does building a personal brand matter? Because if I'm a hiring manager and I just look at your CV and I have no other data points on you, you basically um, you blend in with the rest of the crowd. But if you've got a bit of a personal brand where you say, hey, look at my blog, I write about things that I write about, the healthcare space, or I write about software engineering as a junior developer, I suddenly have so many more data points on you And if I like those data points, you get pushed ahead in the crowd. Okay, so this is something you got to think about. And a personal brand can be built in so many ways. So I think building your personal brand is something you can think about how it, you got to think about what are your strengths and how you best leverage your strengths to do it. LinkedIn is a great place, but there's so many other ways as well. And then the last one, of course, is just applying to jobs. So my strategy for you is if you apply to a job or if you see a job that you really like and you apply to it, try and follow up with, someone within the company and say, hey, I applied to this job, would love to learn more. But make sure you've done the work first, right? Make sure you apply, you put your best foot forward with the job application. Okay. Next.
And so I
Yeah,
have a question there.
sure.
So, when it comes to, I mean, I do get a lot of people who ping me as well. And it's common that I think these days people starting with that sentence of, "Hey, I'd like to know a little bit more about the industry," or would love your advice. Reaching out that way. But what do you think really sets somebody apart? Like if you're cold calling, in this case, I would say it's a bit of cold calling, right? You have to
Yeah,
reach
yeah, yeah.
out. You have to kind of just brave up and say, yes, it's fine. I'm gonna reach out to the stranger and I'm gonna ask them. So what do you think sets them apart from somebody else who's also pinging maybe this person?
So I would say it's trying to find a point of mutual interest or of mutual connection.
Mhm.
So, for example, you say, hey, I saw that you went to this school, or hey, I saw that you worked in this company. And maybe it wasn't their present company, right? Say it's a previous company, and my husband worked at this company and had so many good things to say about it. So something that will essentially make the person at um, look at your message and smile, right? Or you can say, hey, I read your post on this and I thought, and it really resonated with me because I had the same experience,
Mm,
right? You want to get that person to smile when they read their message, when they read your message. This is the
right.
best form of outreach, right? So it means doing a little bit of research on the person, finding something that will make them think, wow, this person actually put a bit of effort into learning a bit about
Yeah,
me. They didn't
right.
just, you should never make a person feel like this message that you sent them was also sent to, 100 other people.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess taking that little bit of extra effort makes them like you already
Yes.
because you just sent something different versus a few other 100 people who might have also pinged saying, "Hey, can I have coffee with you?" Right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Once there is like some form of personalization, and I know that, it took you a little bit of time to put together this message.
Yeah.
It's not just like a template and then you just change like one or two words. It's like you really took some time to put together this message. You'll find that the recipient also will reciprocate, right? Okay, you put
Right.
some time and let me now respond in kind. Now, I mean, be prepared, right? Going back to my first slide, rejection is part of the process.
Yeah.
Even if you put some time, not everybody will respond.
Right.
And you've got to be okay with that.
Hmm.
But if you put some time and you craft enough thoughtful messages, some people, and if you're not, outright saying, give me a job, some people will respond,
Right. Yeah. Totally makes sense.
right? Next slide, Surag. Okay, so this one is really something that separates the amateurs from the professionals. I can tell you personally, I interview candidates, all day long. I get so many applications. People who follow up consistently, I would say have a 5 times higher chance of getting hired. Um, it is such a simple thing to do, but most people, they get so dejected. I give you a very simple example. I once introduced a candidate to an employer, and the employer didn't respond at all. And then I asked the candidate, what happened to that job? She said, well, the employer didn't respond, so I didn't say anything. because the employer has my CV, and I said to her, well, the employer has like, 50, 500 things to do, and you gotta like kind of get their attention, right? And following up is a very simple way to get their attention. Because if you followed up once, twice, the employer will think, oh wow, this person is really interested in the job. I think I should like actually carve out some time to speak to this person, right? Because they're actively following up. Most people never follow up. Because they think, oh well, if they haven't responded to me, that means they're not interested in me.
Right.
But the best candidates always follow up. And if you
Is there
follow up,
anything like
pardon?
too much? Is there anything like too much follow up?
I would say yes. I would say, if you followed up 3 times and you still don't hear back, then probably the employer is not very interested. And,
Okay.
that's a time to move on.
Okay.
Um, But, follow up, space your follow-ups. Don't like follow up on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Follow up on Monday, then the next
Yeah.
week say, hey, and follow up kind of creatively, right? Say, hey, I came across this article about your company. I thought it was so interesting. Would love to, learn more about the role and chat about this initiative as well. So be creative in your follow-ups, right? Don't make
Yeah.
it like another template message.
Yep. Great.
Because follow up actually makes you very likable. It makes you more likable than someone who didn't follow up. It makes
Right.
you feel, the employee feels like, wow, this person actually is interested in me. And that in turn makes them like you.
Yep.
So, follow up critical there. Next slide. Okay, so part three, this is where the rubber meets the road, and that's closing. So I would say honestly, 80% of your effort is going to be spent just getting to the interview. But now once you're at the interview, you got to also be very clear about how you close. I know a lot of people who spend so much time getting the interview and then they just don't practice good hygiene and fail the interview, right? So let's talk about how to nail your interview. Next slide, Surak. So I will tell you a story. I have a candidate who was really, really great at acing interviews. He was not so great at the role, to be honest, but he was really, really great at acing interviews. And then I asked him, what is it that you're doing, right? Every interview he goes to, he will pass. And I asked him what he does. And he said that he basically writes down about 15 to 20 questions that he thinks the interviewer is going to ask. That's not hard. And then he actually writes down the answers. He looks in a mirror and he practices the answers.
Wow.
I mean,
That's a
it's
lot of prep.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. And I wouldn't believe it unless I saw it myself. This guy walks into interviews and comes out with a job offer. Even at like whether it's a small company, whether it's a big company, like he should probably, start a course on how to nail interviews because he has nailed every single interview he's attended. So this is like a bulletproof way to nail interviews. Write down questions, rehearse the answers. Because what happens to most people, right? They go to an interview, they don't have rehearsed answers. Sometimes they're really good at communication or they've attended so many interviews that they actually know the answer. But most of the time, a candidate comes there and they start thinking about the answer during the interview. And as a hiring manager, I'm like, whoa, you're now wasting my time. Are you even sure about who you are? It goes back to the whole know your product statement, right? Like you should really know yourself, know your strengths, know your experiences, and be able to just like deliver that.
Yeah.
Um, and this is, and to the last point on making yourself the least risky option, most of the time people think, oh, I got to go to an interview and I got to wow them. I got to like do a magic show or something. Actually, the truth is, you just got to give the hiring manager a sense of, wow, hiring this person is a very sensible decision to make because they have the right skills. They come across quite well. I think the team will like working with them and they're not a risk factor. They're not going to be like, oh, I'm not, they're not a risk factor in that they may leave this job after 2 weeks or 2 months. Like they will stay. with the team, and they'll figure things out with us as a team, right? So the goal in the interview is not to wow and to, it's not a circus. It's really to just come across as the sensible choice for a hiring manager.
Yeah, I think that's golden. Yeah, it is golden. So it's not even about being the best candidate, like you said.
Yeah.
It's sometimes about not even the perfect candidate or best candidate, but it's more about, are you the good enough candidate that they're not going to have an issue with later?
Yeah, that they're not going to regret.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would also say is, to get to that point where you're the candidate they want to hire is when you can like sit down and really try to understand their problem. So, like I said, back to being a salesperson, right? Ask them, hey, what worked in this role? What didn't work with like the last person who held this role? What do you think really makes someone in this role stand out? And then really try and dig deep, right? Try and dig through the problems that they're facing. A candidate who shows that level of awareness and that level of interest in the problem also stands out pretty quickly. It's like someone, okay, so it's again, if I was selling an inhaler, if someone comes and asks me like, oh, do you have breathing difficulties? Okay, that's very standard, right? If someone comes and asks me, hey, do you find yourself like if when you're walking upstairs, you're kind of out of breath, do you find like you're struggling? And they really try to dig deep through like my problems. Do you find that, when you wake up in the morning, maybe like you're out of air, and that makes me think, yeah, 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 I do have this problem. But if someone came away and straight away asked me, do you have breathing difficulties? 90% of the time I don't. So I'll say no, right? Um, so you want to like get into the nuances of the customer's problem or the hiring manager's problem to set
Right.
yourself apart as a candidate.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Okay, so we're on the second last slide, but ultimately, the best job seekers, they get jobs coming to them. And if you're at the beginning of your job journey, or if you're in the middle of your job journey, try not to stop the job hunting process. And what I mean is, okay, even if you've landed a role, always be building your pipeline for that next role, right? Because the best time to be job hunting is actually when you have a job. Because the right job doesn't come to you when you need it. It comes to you, the timing can be really unpredictable. So if you're in a job that you really, really like right now, when I say you should be looking out for your next role, that role can be internal or external, right?
Right.
Always be cultivating leads. So finding that next goal that you want within the company, or finding, these other companies that you really want to work with, cultivating relationships there, because 10 months down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, if you've maintained those relationships, it's so much easier to get in there. And if you're constantly kind of telling people, hey, I want to be at this stage, in X years down the road, you'll find people kind of remembering that. And when the moment they see an opportunity, they'll think of you. So that is really the goal of a job hunting pro, to get jobs coming to you. So last slide, Surag, next slide. So really the final takeaway here is put your sales cap on when you're job hunting. Keep pushing. Don't be beaten down by rejection. Know your value, know who you are, know your product and market yourself. Build relationships. This is the most consistent way to nail jobs, and always be closing. If you don't sell yourself, the truth is nobody else will. And that's it for my presentation.
Amazing. I loved most of the takeaways and how you simplified it. You kept it 3 points, but how you simplified that whole process. So thank you so much, Sugasini. I know we're up on time, but then if there are any questions, I think we can take another one or two questions if that's okay.
And also, if you are interested in roles with Singaporean companies, um, I've just put a link in the chat. Feel free to fill out that application. And if we do have roles that are suitable for you, my team will definitely reach out.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you for extending that to our participants and attendees today, Sukasni. I'm sure some of them will find that valuable. So please do sign up if you think Sukasni can help you. We are also sharing our code with our barriers. QR code out here, which is also a longer journey, but nevertheless, if that's something that you'd like to take and look at upskilling yourself or going down the tech route, that is something that's also open to you. And I know there are no questions on the chat window at this point. Oh, so wait, there's one comment. I think Sargent says it was great learning from the speakers. Is it going to be published on YouTube? And he'd love to watch again with his wife. Love from Nepal. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you,
So
Sajan.
this call is recorded. We will be making it available to all of those who've registered. So yes, you can definitely watch it again. And we have somebody from the Philippines. So
Yes.
it's really nice to see people joining us from all over. And I know it's a Thursday evening, so or afternoon, wherever you are. So once again, appreciate you joining us. So I think with that, I'm actually going to say we will close. So Kasni, anything else, like one last thing that you want to share so that people take this away when they leave our call today?
Yeah, I think for me, the best job seekers don't fear rejection and they follow up. The two things that you do, this would be it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So stay strong, stay confident, and you have a lot of people who can help you as well. So don't look at it. Like I said, I've gone through this myself. I went through rejection after rejection. When I first came into Singapore, and I've actually had this in every country, to be honest. And in Singapore, I must have had about 25 interviews before I finally landed that job after I moved here. So sometimes it's about just taking that rejection in your stride, but not taking it personally, and then keep going at it. And the right job will happen. So good luck to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sindhu. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sindhu. Thank you, Sugastani.